Human beings have been wrestling with this problem since the beginning of civilization, when our capacity to form large groups, for all its advantages, also started to pose a new threat, that of the hyper-domination of the state, collective or purpose. But without the state, there's just fragmentation into smaller groups. The group itself cannot be done away with, because for better or worse, human beings are social animals, not loners like sharks or tigers. We're team players. But being on one team means not being on others. This means that any given team sidelines, marginalizes, and alienates those who cannot play their game, as well as conflicting with other teams. In the West, starting in the Middle East thousands of years ago, a new idea began to emerge. Evolve is not too strong a word. In the collective imagination. You might, following Dawkins, consider this a meme, although this is far too weak a word. This idea, whose development can be traced back through Egypt to Mesopotamia before disappearing into unwritten history, is that of the divine individual. This eons-old work of the imagination is a dramatic presentation of an emergent idea, which is the solution to how to organize social being without falling prey to nihilistic divisiveness or deceitful totalitarian certainty. The group must unite, but under the banner of the individual. The individual is the source of the new wisdom that updates the antiquated, nihilistic, or totalitarian detritus and glory of the past. For better or for worse, that idea reaches its apogee in Christianity. The divine individual is masculine because the feminine is not individual. The divine feminine is instead mother and child. However, it is a hallmark of Christian supposition that the redemption of both men and women comes through the masculine. And that's because the masculine is the individual. The central realization, expressed dramatically and symbolically, is that the subordination of the group to the ideal of the divine individual is the answer to the paradox of nihilism and totalitarianism. The divine individual is the man that every man admires, and the man whom all women want their men to be. The divine individual is the ideal from which deviations are punished by the group with contempt and disgrace, and fidelity to which is rewarded by the group with attention and honor. The divine individual is not the winner of any individual game, but the player who plays fairly and is therefore continually invited to play. The divine individual is the builder, maintainer, and expander of the state, he who boldly goes where no man has gone before, and someone who eternally watches over the widows and the children. His power of direct and honest communication is that which identifies, discusses, and then resolves the continually emergent problems of human existence. It is for this reason that he is regarded as the savior of the world. The primary image for women is not the divine individual, because of the heavy burden they bear for reproduction. It is instead the divine mother and child. This is not to say that man is the divine individual and woman is not, although such confusion is understandable given the complexity of the problem. Men, like women, have the divine mother and child as an element of their personality. In men, however, it's in the background, so to speak, as the divine individual is in the background of the psyche for women. Men, by necessity, play a less primary role in the care of children. This frees them to act as individuals in a manner that up to now has been nearly impossible for women. Identification with these images is belief in them. Belief is not the statement of agreement with a set of facts, but the willingness to act something out, to become something, to stake your life on something. For men and women alike, this means voluntary adoption of responsibility. Responsibility for oneself, family, and state. It's in that responsibility and not in rights that meaning itself resides. The meaning that makes life bearable. Societies that refuse to honor both of these elements therefore doom their inhabitants to purposelessness, unhappiness, sterility, and the aforementioned dangers of nihilistic divisiveness and deceitful, oppressive, totalitarian certainty. The meaning and responsibility is the necessary meaning in life, which can serve as a counterbalance to its terrible fragility and tenuousness. People must unite under the banner, not of their group and not of nothingness, but of the individual. This is a brilliant and intrinsically paradoxical solution to the problems of nihilistic nothingness and too rigid group identity alike. It's the consciousness of the individual which transforms the chaos of potential into habitable cosmos, as the greatest origin stories repeatedly insist. It is that same consciousness which stands up, rebellious and revelatory, to break down the pathological and too rigid order of that cosmos when it has become old, infirm, willfully blind, and corrupt. It is that consciousness which is the image of God. It dwells within every embodied human form. The fact of its existence is the reason that the law of the land itself must be bound by ultimate respect for the individual, regardless of his or her sins and crimes. It is that consciousness, not the objective material substrate of being, which should be regarded as the ultimate reality. There's no self-evident reason why dead matter should be given ontological primacy over living spirit, although doing so has produced a massive increase in human technological power. It has left that power in the hands of an increasingly disenchanted populace, and that presents a mortal danger. Such power must be wielded by those who have truly and voluntarily accepted the responsibility of being, lest it prove fatal. The West has long been the civilized embodiment of the idea of the divine individual, who does exactly that. That's what the voluntary lifting of the cross of suffering symbolically represents. For all its faults, which are manifold, the West has therefore served as a shining beacon of hope. To those destined to inhabit places too chaotic or too rigid for the human spirit to tolerate. But the West is in grave danger of losing its way. The negative consequences of this can hardly be overstated. A close reading of 20th century history indicates, as nothing else can, the horrors that accompany loss of faith in the idea of the individual. It is only the individual, after all, who suffers. The group does not suffer. Only those who compose it. Thus, the reality of the individual must be regarded as primary. If suffering is to be regarded seriously, without such regard, there can be no motivation to reduce suffering and therefore no respite. Instead, the production of individual suffering can and has and will be again rationalized and justified for its supposed benefits for the future and the group.